What's up, everyone? This is BigPowner, and today I'm going to be walking you through Expedition as a mechanic and giving you all the information you need to start capitalizing on it. The awesome thing about Expedition is it can be super profitable to just add it to your map as a scarab is the way that I would recommend doing it to get the most out of your points inside of your tree. Or you can actually run the expedition logbooks. This video is probably going to be a little bit long because there's just so much stuff to cover on this subject. I'm not going to do demos just because of the setup time and stuff like that for them. I might do separate videos on specific demos for stuff just because, like I said, this is an absolutely massive topic. I have played a ton of Expedition at this point, probably thousands of logbooks. This is its like I don't know, like third or fourth season or something like that, and I really like this mechanic. It is really good. The three different masters, or well, four masters, three of them actually produce currencies, is what we're going to talk about first. So like basically, this is going to help you decide what it is that you want to farm. Um, so the basic breakdown, we have Danig. Danig's cool. He's going to give us discounted currencies. We're gonna have his regular currencies, which are just gonna be all these. These trade one for one. So if I want to trade, I need some extra currency of a specific type for one of them, I can always do the one for one. But what you really want to do is you want to be using his rerolls. His rerolls are awesome because you get the reroll currency, or the coins that are the only thing that are tradable inside of the expeditions as far as their currencies. These currencies you see up here, or everything besides the medallions or the coins or the astrogalies, those are those are not tradable. These four different types. But the coins or the astrogalies or the metals, those are tradable. So that's something to keep in mind if you're going to be farming them. If you're going to be using the scarabs in maps, just the drops that come generated from the expeditions inside of the map are good enough to warrant the scarabs already as themselves. So if you really don't like the mechanic of using them, just because it can be kind of time intensive on some of them, it's like the black scythe is probably the most commonly used one. At least from my point of view, just because it gives us currency type items, but it's kind of one of those things of it's a lot of time consumption to actually go through your coins once you've built them up, and you're kind of trading for mainly low tier currencies, unless you're just buying tons of the coins. So that's why in the past, like when Expedition was the the predominant league mechanic, most of the people didn't actually spend the stuff. They sold all of the materials. Well, they wanted to encourage the players to actually use the mechanic, so they made it so that you can't trade these currencies, which prevents a player that enjoys the mechanic from just buying, just not even playing the mechanic, just buying all of the stuff and then you know just sitting there and trading in all day for profit, because that's not really playing the game. Um, which is, I think, they're thinking of why they changed it up like that. But so the really cool thing about Danig is in his rerolls, you can actually get
Let's
expedition
see what
maps.
else I've got.
So like here, I didn't
Hello?
get a map, and I don't have a ton of coins left on him. I normally spend them all, but I like to buy up all of these coinage currencies. First of all, just because they're sellable. If I was low on something, point seven is not that great of a deal. It's better than one for one, but they go down to point five. If it's something useful that you have, at point
Let's
five,
see what
you're
else I've
probably
got.
going to want to buy all of them. Um, so I'd buy all these. We got a point 0.5 there, so I could buy those, but I actually have a lot of that
Interested in
currency.
something else, are you?
Um, I have a lot of most of this stuff.
Let's
I was
see
hoping
what
I could
else
get
I've got.
an expedition
Let's
logbook.
see
Nope,
what
I
else
didn't get an
I've got.
expedition logbook. But he does wind up bringing up expedition logbooks, and you're able to purchase those. They're normally going to be 50 exceptional sun artifacts, so you might want to keep that in mind if you're doing a lot of rerolls on him. You probably don't want to completely burn out all of your exceptionals, just because, if a logbook comes up, you're talking about that's like basically buying, probably like 30C, unless, like this league for the challenge, we have like one specific logbook that's like 3EX. So yeah, you probably want to have that. The thing that you should note about your inventories is they never go away. Um, Unless you re-roll, whatever's in here is going to stay here. So if you wind up having something come up and you can't afford it, just don't roll over it. You can log off, you can play the mechanic, you can, wait all league if you want and buy it at the end of the league. Anything that's in there is going to stay in there until you either re-roll or you buy it. So that is Danig. Pretty simple things there. Basically, every time he refreshes the inventory, you're gonna get the reroll currency for the other ones. You have possibility for expedition maps. You have and then you have randomly selected currencies at a discounted price.
Well met.
Gwennen. Okay, so Gwennen is probably the one that had the biggest hype around her. And the main reason why is she's kind of like the gambler. She's very quick and easy to use. Basically, the main thing people go for is they spam through these and they're just going to go for the oopsies, wrong button. They're just going to go for heavy belts and leather belts and they're going to just basically be hoping for that super big payoff. Um, More than likely, just buying random stuff from her. Um, the only way you're going to wind up getting something is if you do, that's going to be like substantial, or the chase items is really going to be one of those two things. I've not sold any of my coins, and I farm it in map, so I get a lot of the currencies for all of them. So I've used a lot of rerolls, and I haven't gotten anything good from her. So I can't attest and be like, yeah, she's awesome because I haven't gotten anything from her. I haven't specifically like tried to invest a lot into her to try to generate the headhunter or the Mageblood. There's other items, pretty much any unique item, if the correct base is in there, it has a chance to bring up that unique. So that's something that you could pay attention to. And it, kind of my feeling is I think the probability of me getting something is really low. But that's because I'm rolling for basically two of the rarest items in the game. So I like to do it. If it winds up hitting, obviously that's a huge payday. I know there's a lot of people that in the Expedition League, that's what they did was they, bought thousands of coins and they just re-rolled that like over and over. Since you can't trade these other currencies, if you really wanted to do that, you could probably take and do a combination of the Knights of the Sun with her so that you could transfer Danig's currency into the specific currency that you need for the rerolls for the belts because they're going to be the grand broken circlets. So that might be something that you pay attention to when you're using um, when you're using him. Okay,
I'm here.
so the last two are the ones that have the highest earning potentials. Well, outside of just like sheer dumb luck. Like obviously, Gwennen, she could take and give you that huge drop, but realistically, probably most people are not going to see something like that from her. Tujen is the kind of like the bread and butter. Like, he's gonna basically guarantee that he's gonna be giving you some currencies. Um, you do get some big drops inside of his inventories. They're not very common, but if you're doing it a lot, there's consistent currency in the form of like alchemies, scouring orbs, chaos orbs. Every once in a while, you see exalted orbs. I've had 3 times that I've gotten stacks of exalted orbs, And keep in mind how much I've played this. I've told you I've played tons and tons of this, so don't be like, oh, I didn't see a stack of exalted orbs. They can come in there, but they're extremely rare considering I've only seen them 3 times. Um, well, maybe four. One time this league, I have seen a stack, and I think this league I got a stack of three. The largest stack I've seen was 5 or 6. Um, so you can get really good rolls on that. I've also had other things come up like uh, synth maps. I've had synth maps come up pretty much every league since it's come out. They're not very common, but you do get some unique maps in there. So there's good stuff. Basically, you build up a bunch of coins, and then you're gonna sit here and you're gonna fill up your inventory with probably predominantly like scouring orbs, alchemies, um, alterations, stuff like that. One thing that you need to keep in mind if you're trying to stack up a lot, these coins have a cap. They used to all be different, but now they're just a flat 50,000, 50,000, 50,000, 50,000. So since there's no overspill of that, like when the league first came out, you were able to create stacks of them in your inventory. Now we don't have that ability to stack them in our inventory, so overspill is just deleted. So don't overstack and wind up, losing a bunch of potential currency. Um, you know, there's probably going to be people that are just going to speed click through this and just look for um, the large drops inside of here. I don't know if that would be profitable just because the coins have a sale value. I think you'd have to be lucky for that to actually come out as a winner for you. I think um, to really get your your time and currencies worth out of it, you really have to be buying. You have to really be paying attention to the market as to how much a stack of something's worth. And the way that you really have to think about it is how much is this currency like stack worth. Like if alterations are going for 7 for 1C, then a stack of 20 alterations, you would be like, well, this is about 3C. So that's kind of how you have to look at it. And after early game, when there's hardly nothing on the market, it does take stacking up quite a bit for it actually to convert to like significant amounts of currency. So you're probably talking about running, like, normally I'd probably say I run, I don't know, like 60 of them before I start selling those currencies off. So it's not really something that you're going to see the immediate, that you're not going to see immediate like spendable currencies um, in large amounts until you run a decent number of them. So normally, if I'm going to farm Tujen specifically, I plan to do a lot of runs. I'd say probably I do like about sets of 60 is probably like um, my minimum that I'll go in on it. Um, yeah, so that's Tujen. I would pay attention to his the jewels that come up, the abyssals, and just check those because I've actually had a perfect one drop this league. So it's worthwhile scanning over. You do get skill gems. They can be 2120s. Just this league, there's not very many of them that are valuable. But every once in a while, you might get something that has some value to it. Since they kind of just random roll, they used to be a lot better. They used to drop. You used to see empower, enhance, and lightens in there pretty frequently. I've only seen one this league. They're really uncommon in there. Some of the better stuff, it seems like they significantly pulled back on the drops. And most of the currency that I'm making in here is, like I said, from basically stacking up lots of the smaller stuff. Really pay attention to the costs on things because sometimes something will be way overpriced, and that's why I was saying you need to make sure that you pay attention to the value of what you're getting for how many coins. This does take a little bit of a feel to get used to. Basically, I can't be like, this is the exact price you should be buying this at because it's going to change based on market values. So you really have to get a feel for how much coins you're earning per run. One of the things that comes up, well, there's two things that come up in here that are almost always overpriced, and that's divine orbs and annulment orbs. You'll have like annulment orbs come up, and they're as expensive as like the exalts that come up, and you're talking about, particularly right now in this league, that's only 2C, or the divine orb is like 6C, and it can kind of be in that same category where it's not worth these currencies that I have to farm myself to buy it. You might be like, oh yeah, it's 6C, it's better than buying several stacks of small stuff. But the reality is you buy that one thing that's way overpriced, and now you've lost the potential to stack up way more currency. So that's something that you want to pay attention to.
Got some more?
Um, so yeah, orbs of fusings, stack decks. So I'd buy
Seems
all the
reasonable.
orbs of fusing. I buy the stack decks. This is a little bit expensive for 10 stack decks. 1300 is a base. But I have a lot of coins right now, and I don't have very many coinage
That's a
left,
yes from
and
me.
kind of overstacked on some of these currencies. Um, so yeah,
It'll do.
chromatic orbs.
Plenty of
Chromatic
money.
orbs are gonna, especially with some of the restructuring for being able to get these double corrupted items. It takes a lot of these chromatic orbs to re-roll that stuff, because it takes, and the vault orbs. And just like recoloring stuff, especially corrupted items, there's always going to be value for them, but it's normally like 1 EX to like 1,000 of them or 1,200 of them. So it takes a while to build up, but it still has value, and they normally come in stacks of 10 or 20. So there is some value there. I could be like, oh, that's a C. And kind of the point of going through this is you kind of go through it fast. You got a couple C here, a couple C here, 10 C here. I made, like 14 C right there. I took all the stuff that has value to it,
Always
and then I go to
love
the next
helping
one. Here
someone.
you go. I got like
I'll take it.
5C,
Pleasure doing
8C,
business with you. Not happy
9C,
about it. Not grumpy either. Pleasure doing business with
12C,
you.
like 12 and a half C there.
Always love
You
these
get
exotic coins.
currency. The essences, I like to pick these up if they're not like overpriced,
Take it.
just
Sure.
because I use
Why not?
essences to craft.
That's a yes
So
from
I pretty
me.
much always take essences. I also play harvest, so I can
Seems
re-roll the
reasonable.
essences that I don't want. Obviously, you could take and turn those and sell those, but once again, those are something that in order to really get currency out of them, you have to have a pretty big stack of
Got some
those.
more?
Oh, wow. I got an exalt there. That was pretty lucky.
Seems reasonable.
That, rolling 3 times, you probably aren't expecting, you shouldn't be expecting to get an exalt, but it's always nice when they come up. That one cost me about 100 and something coins of the exceptionals. Obviously, try to sit on, build up a good amount of those to have a good stockpile, so when that really good stuff comes up, I am able to buy it.
Seems
But there you go,
reasonable.
you get consistent
Sure,
currency
why
of
not?
probably like, you're going to be seeing that like 10 to 20 C average per every one, and then sometimes you get lucky, you get an exalt, you get, a synth map, something like that, and the total earnings winds up being really good. And what makes it really good is you're also getting drops inside of the maps while you're farming these currencies, so it's just really good consistent currency. If each one of your coins converting to 10, 15, 20 C consistently, and then those bigger drops are just bonuses, if that seems like a good thing to you, then you'll probably really like farming Tujen.
Keep fighting.
The last one, this is
Glad
one
to
that I
see
don't
you.
think many people are using. I don't even know if I have the coins to roll stuff. Actually, I've burned out his coins. So Rog is really awesome. Let's make some space. Rog is actually really awesome. I really have always liked him early league, but there's certain items. Um, I've really liked him early leagues because he's basically like free crafting. Although his crafting is randomized,
Glad to see you.
although his crafting is randomized, like you don't really get to choose what happens to it. You have quite a bit of chances to wind up creating something cool. The main thing is you start off and you can look at stuff like Like, is it a good base? If it doesn't already have good stats on it, then basically all you want to be starting with is a good base. You can do this for currency to make currency. Before it would just be basically a complete gamble. However, with the new influences, it actually gives us the ability to create some pretty crazy items, and make at least some decent currency. If I like look on here, I wouldn't actually do this one just because it's a bad base. But this wouldn't have been too bad of a starting place. Normally, the best starting place is going to be when one side is already good,
I've
and
always
that's
got
where
more.
the incoming new influence crafting ability really makes this become a really
A bit
powerful
more stuff.
crafting for yourself, um, or crafting for a um, or for something to sell. Like if you know a specific item is really valuable, um, then that's going to be a good thing to go through. There are downsides, like certain types of weapons are really hard to craft, or certain types of gear. And the reason why is because of how it works. It basically, when it rerolls, it does a reroll. Like jewels are complete and total like shots in the dark.
It's your
So
lucky day, Exile.
it's a complete shot in the dark, and the reason why is because everything that's listed on it, it's like tier one, tier one, tier one. So it's just going to completely randomly select what's going to wind up going on there when you do rerolls. So it's kind of just like, taking shots in the dark. But basically, it's going to give you different options randomly. The cool thing that they added this league was they highlighted what's changing. So it says, remove all suffixes for this price. If you upgrade it,
Allow me to take
it's
my
going to go ahead
ruined
and
hammer
take
to
that
this thing's
off, and
tail
then it's going to
end.
give you another one.
Can't get any worse, right?
This is something you have to keep in mind, is if you ever skip something,
Ever put a drop of
you
black
no longer have
pioneer or blood on a piece of
the
equipment?
skip option.
I have.
That's something you have to
It's
keep in
worth it,
mind if
trust
you're
me.
trying to create a good item in here. And the reason why is because, say like I have all good stats on my bottom, and it gives me an option that's to change something on the top, and my top sucks and I really want to re-roll the top, but my bottom's perfect. So in the quest to try to save currency, if I skip changing the top, the next change could be, to remove all the mods on the bottom or re-roll the bottom, and then I would no longer have the choice to skip, which in that situation, the best thing to do is to never skip something that doesn't affect the side that I like, um, so that then, I can continue trying to craft the item. You are limited on the
Something
number of
quite
these, so like you'll kind of go
intra-feeling if
through
I
it,
hammer on this
and
thing's front
right
end.
here, like if I
I
was
could
looking at
knock
this, I'm
some of
like,
its
yeah,
enchantments
that's
about.
not really worth anything,
Allow
so I'm
me
gonna
to take my
re-roll.
ruined hammer
The
to this
top,
thing's tail
doesn't
end.
look good,
A
so I'm gonna
few small
re-roll.
rooms in the right places would do
Does it have
wonders
any
here.
value at this point? Because I hit some decent stuff, two resistances, percent life. I could just go ahead and take this
Good
item,
deal.
or you could continue on. There is going to be a certain point, like 30, 40 C I made right there. Um,
You want the premium deals,
so
I
like
see.
we could take this bow,
Allow me to take my
reroll
ruined hammer to this
suffixes. I
thing's tail
have
end.
one good
Can't
mod
get any
down there, which
worse,
is the
right?
crit multiplier, so I'm going to go ahead and do
Dandy
that.
says I've got to outsell it.
The bottom's
Don't
still
blame me.
not good.
It's your lucky day,
Remove
Exile.
all prefixes. It's tier
A
6. I'm going to
carefully
go ahead
applied
and do that.
rune of
Remove lowest.
nullification could do
I can't
wonders.
afford
I
that
recently
just
received
because
a
I don't have
full
the
shipment
coins,
of
and I'm trying
rare
to go all the way to
golden
the end.
pioneer blood.
Um,
Something quite interesting happens when you apply a drop of
Chaos damage
golden
is going to come up a
pioneer
lot
blood
because
to a piece of
it doesn't
equipment.
have many tiers, so when it rolls, it's almost always going to be selected. That's a downside to this. However, one upside is that right now the triple elementals are are pretty hot, and I would say that you can hit and see triple elemental through his crafting process quite a bit. And the cool thing is if you get triple elemental and they're like, like a 3 or a 4 or a 5, he has mods that upgrade mods all the way to their max tier. So like, it could be tier 10 and it could upgrade it to tier 1. They also have mods that like upgrade, three things on this item by one tier or two tiers. And it can, upgrade the whole item, like all the mods on the item. So there's
A few small
there's
rooms
pretty
in the
cool
right
stuff. Like I got
places
a
could
tier
do
2
wonders here.
elemental,
Allow me to take my
reroll
room. A few small rooms in
suffixes.
the right places could do
So
wonders
this would be the point. It's upgrade and take. That means there's going to be no more rolls on the item. So if that upgrade and take, like the cost there, this is like the only one that you have to be like, is it worth the currency? Is it going to possibly make my item better? If it's not, then since it's at upgrade and take, this won't be selectable either way. But you would just take the item
Let me
if the
get that up
change
for you
isn't going to
briefly.
have any possibility to help you because there's nothing to craft after that. There's no extra option that comes up. So that's pretty much this. Um, the way that I'd say that it's like super powerful, and the reason why I was saying it's super powerful with the new influence is you only have to get half the item good, and you can save, like you can wind up crafting, like a starter base for your influence item, or you can, get, like a triple resistance on something, and then you take and you use the new influence to then, block one side and use, the exalt slams or the chaos orbs. It just makes it easier basically for you to craft like really really strong items. And this is kind of just, you can use it as like prep work for finished versions of items. It is a cheaper way to do it, and there's advantages and disadvantages to that. Like obviously if I'm using this, I'm not going to wind up with a 30% base. You can get quality in here. Like that can be one of the options, is add quality, add sockets, link sockets, stuff like that. But it's not something that you can consistently rely on. It will randomly give you chances to add influences, but mainly the stuff that you're going to want to go for, really random rolls on jewels. You can wind up making some sweet jewels. I've pretty much every league made at least like a few good jewels. That's like the main thing I always roll on, just because, if there isn't like certain items, but that, boots, because there's really good boots you can make, because you hit triple resistance on boots, belts, gloves, rings, something like that. That's going to wind up being something that's going to turn into currency. Crafting stuff for yourself, chests also. This really got a lot more usefulness to it now that we have these new influences. That, I wind up getting tier 1 suppression on the bottom with 2 good resistances. Then I can, go to the influence and finish the item. So it can wind up helping you craft some really nice items. I did one chest that I used this league until, I upgraded to something that I'm 40 EX into and probably going to be a lot more into. So yeah, I like this. I would say that at the very minimum, this is super useful to be familiar with early league. The reason why is because, if I need a pair of boots, if I need a belt, um, I can buy and spam items, and you can get gear that is relatively really really strong compared to what you're just going to be getting dropping on the ground. If you wind up picking up some coins for this early league, this is a really nice way to boost up your gear. I've done this each league since this came out. In the Expedition League, when this came out, I used it early. The only thing that I was using it for towards the end was jewels, and then, outside of the beginning of the league, after using him, the only thing I was using it for was jewels, and it was just like, I built up a bunch of stuff. I'm gonna spam jewels, and I made some currency, so it was worthwhile. But this league is really the synergy between the new influence and this, the potential to make actually pretty good items is a lot better, because there are a lot of situations where you'll wind up with really good stuff on one side, but then you'll be like if just that top had that one better stat or something like that, and that's where you can go to the influence. So I like it. It has a lot more usefulness in my opinion now. Um,
Don't drink the water.
yeah, so let's talk about logbooks, or first we'll talk about maps. Um, as far as maps, if you're going to be running them, the way that I would suggest to run them is just using scarabs all of the time. This is going to save you a lot of points in your tree because we have expedition down here. It's up here. So we've got a few places that we've got expedition, and then up here. So the points that I would wind up taking is I would go for all of these points. You could do a little like um, so which one is it? So I would say you can go either way. I would go this way and skip the percentage chance for these. So I would actually stop. You could actually stop here. I'd go here, 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 and then right here, I'd go the cheaper way, 1, 2, 3. And that's all that I take when I'm farming this in maps. The reason why is because I want to end the maps every single time, and these nodes are really strong. The additional suffix, so that means one out of every three remnant is going to have two good mods. So it has a prefix, which they're like the pillars basically, and there's two things it says on it. It says, like monsters are immune to fire. That's the prefix, that's the downside. And then the bottom one will be like 50% increased quantity of drops, or 50% increased logbooks, or 50, extra chance for currency. Um, so that's really good. It gives you, 3 out of 10, they're going to have an extra good thing. So it'd be like quantity and, 35% chance to drop influence items. Really, really nice. The other thing that's really cool about this is, logbooks, you can't get to as high of quantity inside of the expedition that you can get them inside of maps. So the drops actually wind up pretty crazy inside of maps. I'd say they're really, really good. Um, and they're easier to run inside of maps, and because it's less numbers of stuff. You're able to get higher quantity stuff like that. They're really, really good in maps. Like even if I wasn't playing the logbooks, even if I wasn't super into spending the currencies, it's probably one of the top scarabs for sure, just based on the drops inside of maps. So, and if you're not running the logbooks, those drop, and those are going to be pretty consistent currency. Um, so yeah, especially earlier on in the league, they're definitely worth a lot more. There's probably more people now going to be farming them inside of maps than doing the logbooks, just because the logbooks can be a lot harder. Um, but they're also really consistent, really good currency. I like it because I've was someone that really liked Blight, but Blight's kind of fall into a place where it's not really profitable. So I really like the Expedition logbooks because they're more profitable. Even like the Ravaged maps, they're just awful. Their drops are just awful. Absolutely awful outside of, just like getting bases early league or something like that. So I really like Expedition. I like it in maps, and I like the Expedition logbooks a lot. I'm sure if you get used to playing it, you'll probably really like it too. Um, the only real downside to Expedition is it's very time consuming. So, like, if you're trying to speedrun maps, Expedition is not going to be the thing that you're going to want to be doing. Like, I'm trying to get done my challenges, so I'm not running Expedition right now. It's my favorite mechanic, and it's probably the most profitable scarab that you can add. And I feel like I'm trying to like think, and I'm pretty sure that it's probably the most profitable scarab as far as payout for what you're putting in. Um, you could probably argue possibly that just because the time taken that maybe it's not, but the currency is just really, really strong. You play it some, you're gonna find out. But definitely important to have this. You get +2 remnants, 30% chance for an extra remnant. This explosive radius and an increased number of explosives is going to guarantee that you're able to get all of the stuff that's inside of the map. So that's really awesome. That's going to help you out a lot. We also have increased logbooks. So this is really important. Once again, I would just go with the 3 points. This gives us increased quantity of artifacts. Those are the spending currency. Um, the reason why I don't go for these +1 chance for expedition encounter is because I want it in every single map, and because we have increased number of remnants, we have increased explosive radius, increased number of explosives. This really puts you in a situation where you could be really cheap with it, and you could just use the lowest tier scarabs. Because this is just basically it puts an expedition in, and then we have these, which gives us extra explosive and increased number of runic monsters, which the runic monsters definitely are a bonus. I'm not saying that there's not value there, but some of the stuff that we have on these is not really much value. because number of explosives not really helping you once you already have that node. I don't. Most of the time, I find myself when I use the higher tier scarabs that I'm like, I've hit everything, and I still have like one or two. I still have like one or two explosives left. Um, I don't know. Maybe you could get in some kind of weird situation, and you might need the extra ones. But with the bigger radius and more explosives, it's pretty easy to hit everything. But what I'm saying is, even if you were to go with just the rusted scarabs, it's definitely going to be super profitable. So, even on low investment, you have high return. Um, so why is it that I don't recommend trying to run it to get these? And the reason why is because this is kind of stuck down here where it takes a lot of points to get these percentage chance. And these artifacts here, we have the 4% kind of broken up from the ones that actually are going to show you currency increases. And because since you can run, you don't have to go for the gilded ones, which that's would make investment higher and the demand for those higher. Since you can really go for this really low investment, and because scarabs are so abundant, I would just completely skip going for percentage chance for it to spawn naturally in the map, and I would just, if you can't afford the better ones, just get a huge stack of rusted scarabs and just have them in every single map, and it is just going to pay you off a ton. The cool thing about this also is in maps, you're going to wind up randomly getting the masters, so you're going to get basically like this buckshot of you get to basically try all the masters, use all the masters, and then you can really get a feel for them and decide what it is that you want. Obviously, someone gets lucky with Gwennen, and she's probably going to wind up being their every league go-to thing. For me, she's like I said, I spend her currency because it would be great if it happened, but I'm not going to focus on farming her. Like I said, Rog I always go for early league just because, if I want a quick, easy way to upgrade my gear. Also, it's a really good way to, if I make something, I could wind up making something that's really good for early league. I could wind up turning that over for some quick currency. It basically just gives you the ability to just, you know, spam on items and try to make something better. Um, so yeah, maps, it's really good. Let's get to logbooks. This is probably what most people are interested in. Um, there's two ways that you can run logbooks. Well, there's three ways, but I'm more talking about farming it. The the first way would be the way that I wasn't counting in those two ways, and that would be basically, you just run them with scarabs. Eventually, you build up a ton of logbooks, and you just run them. Which that's not really specifically farming it. That's kind of how I play pretty much everything is I just use all the stuff that I get. There's some stuff that I don't, but I run all my Elder maps. I run all the Conqueror maps now. I run all my boss fights. Like, but I don't really go out and buy mini mechanics. Like I'm not buying Uber Elder fragments or I'm not buying. There's a lot of stuff that I'm not, doing that where I'm buying the stuff. I kind of like to naturally farm all my stuff. This is one thing that I don't do that with. When I want to farm expedition, because I like to do really large quantities of them, just simply because you kind of need a lot of quantity to really be like cashing in. Because when you're buying, when your reward is largely alterations, chromatics, scourings, you need a lot of those to actually turn them into, like exalts. Also, the other things that you get in there naturally from the maps. So like any of the factions, they have maps that drop Legion, Legion, Scarabs, Blight, um, fragments, currency fragments. Um, so they're pretty much maps that do all of that different stuff. There's some maps that I don't like because they're hard for me to see in. There's two kind of like categories. The two categories as far as farming outside of, basically you just farm and then you build up some and you play them yourself, which that's something that I do. I have all of my maps and, I run most of them. The other two categories is you're just going to buy expedition logbooks and it's all that you're going to run. So there's two takes on this. One take is you just buy um, probably Black Scythe is probably the most popular one. I know in Expedition Gwennen was the most popular, but honestly, I can't really think that she's still the most popular. So I'm just gonna say Black Scythe is probably the most popular for the consistent currency. One side is you just take and you buy bulk of Black Scythe maps. You know, on the regular trade site, you can search for people that are selling bulk, or you know, you whisper someone to buy one and you can say, do you have more? And they'll probably be like, yeah, I've got a bunch. And it's normally pretty easy to find someone with bulk, and that's basically just you're like, I want just Black Scythe on it or Gwennen on it, and I want as many as you have. You buy those, you take and you bless orb them, you alch them, and then you just run them. That's the fastest, quickest, easiest way to do it because you're buying a ton of maps at once, and this gives you like an efficiency to it. The other way is to be more picky with your maps. Like, you know, I really like this map. Like, I like personally, you know, it goes back and forth league to league. The first league, um, the Shipwreck Reef was like the most popular one just because of its rewards, scarabs and breach splinters. So that was like the most popular one. It wasn't really my favorite. Um, sometimes the drop's really good. But then that was another thing for me personally, that it was like I don't like selling stuff that's less than like a few exalts, so it's gonna take me a really long time to build up, you know, scarabs to sell that. So that was never really my favorite, but that definitely was one of the most popular ones. Um, the the graveyard map is really popular in other leagues. This league is probably not as popular just because simulacrums are super cheap. I think simulacrums are um, yeah, like 55C. So cemetery not going to be as popular. The map layout's pretty good. I like it because I can actually see in it. So even though the simulacrums aren't super valuable, and because it drops those splinters, it also drops catalysts. Um, that's not going to be the most popular map, but I actually still like that map. It's one of the maps I enjoy. Like Shipwreck Reef isn't bad. I don't like any of the desert maps. I don't like bluffs. I will run some of the desert maps just because they're the flat and open ones. Um, but they're not my favorites. The Vol Temple one is really good if you want really high quantity of monsters. The cool thing about that one is it drops skill gems, so you can wind up getting really lucky. You can get you know Empower, Enlighten, Enhance. You can get 2120s. You get a lot of like 20% gems, 23% gems. So early league, that's a really good one to stack up GMPs when GMPs are really expensive. And when everyone needs their 2120s, that can be an absolute jackpot of a place to play in, because obviously, like early league, you get a 2120. Anyone that's playing it, they want that, and there's not a very high supply. Once you get later on into the league, sorry, my nose. It's just once you get later on into the league, um, obviously there's going to be like a few gems that are worth a ton, and most of them are going to be worth nothing. So the consistent profit in that is going to go down severely. But then you're going to have like those big jackpot drops. Um, so any of the ones that drop gems, keep that in mind for early league. The currency ones, Karui Island, Volcanic Island, I really like those maps. The Sometimes you can get lucky with the currency drops. So sometimes um, there's a significant amount of currency, but then there's also times when the currency isn't that good there. Um, the fossils are the other drop there. So depending, and they only drop specific fossils. So at this point in the league, the only fossils you're really hoping for in there are probably like perfect fossils, which are 5C, corrodids 5C, um, bound 5C. So like there's some that are 5C. Um, truthfully, you don't see those very often. The majority are the most common ones, but you do get some of those. So it can, you can pick up 10, 20, 30C in maps. I would say probably the average is like 10, 20C in fossils if you hit some of the nodes. That'd probably be a realistic guess. Splinters, it drops splinters in there, so that's cool. I personally like those too because even if it's not dropping me very much currency, it's stuff that 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 eventually builds into a currency by itself, and then I don't have to convert it myself. So that's the one reason why I like volcanic and Karui. Um, and having fossils just to use myself. I don't really sell them, just because you don't get enough to really get like stacks. Like I haven't sold fossils all league, and I don't have a crazy amount of fossils, and I've ran quite a bit of expeditions there. So it could take a really long time to be able to actually convert those into like exalt stack quantities. Like now I've gotten there with two of these. I've got a few stacks that go up to an exalt or more, but that's all of my gameplay for the league, and I haven't used Shuddering Fossils, I haven't used Bound Fossils, I haven't used Corroded, so not a huge amount of fossils, but I like that the currency shards drop there. Currency shards do drop in every single map, so do currencies, because they have the chests. So there's going to be chest. The loot that I'm talking about is inherent loot, which that's going to be loot that's going to be affected by the remnants. So that's another thing that you need to know. You can play some of these. Obviously, if you farm these, you're going to figure out which maps you like, which maps you don't. It's kind of like I said, the most popular one was Shipwreck Reef. I was never really thrilled about it, just because like I think mainly because like the character that I was playing, like this league it wasn't so bad because I was playing EA, and but I don't know, I don't like the little stick up things inside of the map that I don't know. That was the main reason why I didn't like it. There's like corners I was getting caught on, and normally I play like super squishy, run around builds, and that would just get frustrating. um, so that was kind of my reason for that. Um, but yeah. So buying bulk is one option. The other option is to do split beasts. This is pretty simple. I'll do a quick example on this. The correct way to do this, to save yourself currency, the best time for split beasts is when the price of the expedition logbooks. If the price of the expedition logbooks is more than a split beast, the split beast is always going to be worth it. Why? Because you're taking and doubling something that has more value, and it also is going to help you for your rolling. We got an example here. I've got this. It's got battle graves, and I've got Knights of the Sun, which Knights of the Sun is dope because it gives me currency for all of them. It gives me the reroll currencies. It gives me discounted other currencies, and it gives me chances for logbooks. So I'm going to split this. It also happens to be a good combination. We have additional chests, explosive radius, and increased number of remnants. So what these three things do, explosive radius is the size of the circle, so I can hit more things at a time. Chests, obviously, is going to be, chests full of random stuff. That could be currency, shards, fossils, catalysts, like anything. It could be any of those things. And then, as I said and explained before, the remnants are the things that have a prefix and a suffix. One thing's the downside, one thing's the upside. So like immune to fire and monsters drop 40% increased items. A theme to a logbook is always going to be the strongest logbook. So if I have like one that has like more increased number of monsters and increased runic numbers of monsters, then I can look at the map when I get in there, and I can try to hit as many of those types of things, and it's going to be like super magnified. The types of logbooks that I like to have is I like to have one type of thing that makes it so that I can get more inside of the logbook, which that's either increased number of explosives, increased explosive radius, or increased placement radius. Those three things, if I can have one of those, that's going to be good. And then I want combinations of other things that are going to work well, or most of them are going to only be 2 stats. So I would want like either monsters or runic monsters or something like that. I don't know. Some people say the chests are the best. I honestly, um, I don't know. Um, I think remnants are good. Extra mods on remnants are good. Um, chests have never been like my favorite. I think monsters probably like monsters like well, I think if you get lucky with a map, if you get lucky with an expedition logbook and it has like lots of monster mods, and then you wind up hitting a lot of stuff just because the monsters can get magnified more than anything, and the reason why they made them really rare, so it's not is common, but if you hit it, it's awesome. They have a mod inside of the map. It's an ultra rare mod now. It used to be super common. It duplicates runic monsters. So like if I had a map with runic monsters, like increased runic monsters as an implicit, and then I hit that duplicated runic monsters, basically it doubles every single one of those runic monsters that I hit, which is awesome. And then you can also get, 50% increased rare monsters or 50% basically then you've doubled the runics and then you increase them by 50%. Now it's 3 times and it just gets crazy. So yeah, that's probably the craziest one to do it. And then if you do it on like a high density map like Vol Temple, it's just absolutely insane. Like it just like the whole map, like when it spawns, just packs everything. um, so yeah, the way that you want to do these is before you split, and I would normally do these in large groups. I would normally do at least 5 of these at a time just to make it more efficient. And then I would take and I would bless orb the top. This one's not bad because we've got 37 out of 40%, but I like to have better. I like to try to get my percentage mods above 30%. Since my 2 earning mods, I kind of like chests I'm not as focused on. I want to get my explosive radius and my increased number of remnants both above 30. So that's what I'm going to try to do. All right, so I got 36, 34, and 10 on the chest. That's going to be fine. I'll let the chest be my low roll, and the reason why is because like it's great that they're there, but the explosive radius is going to affect me throughout the whole map, and the remnants is going to be like splattered all over the map also. So um, 30% more remnants. The chests might be stronger, but I don't know. I feel like if I can hit a bunch of remnants that are good early on, then that can be really good. Sometimes remnants aren't going to be good. Like if you just have really good, like say I have like runic monsters more, and then I have remnants, and it's on a map where the inherent loot isn't something that I want, then I probably wouldn't be caring about the remnants. Anyways, I've got good rolls on this now, so now I would go to my we'd make it rare at this point because it has to be rare to do this. So like if I had a set of them, I would roll all 5. I get them bless orbed. You blessed orb them first. This is going to save you time and it's going to save you currency. The reason why is because when it splits, it doesn't affect the implicits. The implicits will stay the same. The only thing that are going to get changed are the prefixes and suffixes. So we go to our bestiary. You need a plague arachnid. Go down here. Half mods on each item.
My mana is gone.
Okay, so did all my maps. If I was actually, running this, I would have, I would have broken up a ton of them. And then you're going to go to Scour Alking. I normally put them, when I have 12, I normally put them over on this side or in the middle. And then I'll take a bunch of Scours and Alks. Or just pretending like, I have a bunch here. And then I'll take them one at a time. I like to keep the 2 that I've split together. The reason why is because then it gives me consistency. I look at one, and then the next one's going to be the same type of thing. I don't know. Just for me, that kind of makes them run smoother for me. So now we're just going to scour out. Um, Good rolls for me, because I roll these in bulks, is going to be 70% plus. You can keep rolling these for days and not hit, really high stuff. I mean, like really, really high, like maxed out versions of these is going to be like, like 100% quantity. So keep that in mind. Um, when you're rolling these, you need to make sure that there's no mods that are going to make it unplayable. Um, for this build, there's not really anything that does that, but I also am at a point where I'm not really worried about the mods that are on it. The only things that I really have to worry about for this build, I'm full cold damage. So, obviously once I get inside of the map, I can't have, cannot, monsters are immune to cold damage. Obviously that makes me lose. But like on my EA build, there's the cannot freeze, shock, or ignite. So obviously on an explosive arrow build where all of my damage comes from basically my ignite, you know, I'm not gonna want to click on one of those pillars that does that, because that's gonna make it so that I can no longer complete the map. So those are things that you have to pay attention to. I'll go and hop into one, and we'll kind of. I think I'm gonna finish this here with just demonstrating this. I'm not going to go through the whole map just because that'll take a lot more time, and we're almost at an hour. I just wanted to give a breakdown of everything. Okay, so I got them both over 70%. Actually, at this point, that's what I'm going to do. I'll run this real quick.
Hero.
We'll try to do it fast.
Remembrances attached to the Knights of the Sun.
Knights of the Sun. Let's go. Okay, so we've got the underground areas. These ones that show up as blue ones on your map, these are the underground areas. For each area, there's like sets of different things. There's like chittering chambers. There's forgotten passageway, which is like it. There's no monsters in it. There's I forget what the poison cave is called, but there's like one cave that has like like poison nodes. There's basically a bunch of different underground areas. We have side areas
I'm not up to
like
their
these over
history.
here. Um, the thing is you have to think about underground areas and these side areas. Basically, put something against it, one of the explosives touching it, and it will give me access to that. I have an explosive touch one of the underground areas, it'll give me access to it. So the thing about them is you don't want to wind up burning through all of your pillars to try to get one that's way off in a corner. If it takes like 3 or 4 of your 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 explosives to get to it, it's probably not going to be worth it, because you probably could have gone a different direction and got more. Because the side areas are going to be 2 to 4 on those side areas. They're normally like 2 or 3 chests. The underground areas can be 2 to 6. Though I think I've seen 6 like one time. So or not very many times. Basically, it's really uncommon. It's normally in like chittering chambers. Sometimes you'll get 6 chests in there. Um, so yeah, like there's that's the way that you really got to think about it. Is this is like 2 to 3 chests on those side areas, 2 to 4 chests, and the underground areas can be 2 to 6. But realistically, you should probably think this is like 2 to 4 chests. Like Spectral Hollow is normally 2 to 4, and there's like normally a lot of monsters in there. And then if there's a boss, it'll basically be like a big cone that you'll see, and it'll have like the boss face emblem on it. We didn't get one on this one. So if you're taking your time, you're going to want to run around and see what it is. The things that you're looking for the most is runic monsters are duplicated. That's the downside, but it doubles the runic monsters, which basically you can think about that as it's like doubling your loot. So I would run around and kind of just look for stuff that I want. Obviously, if I have monsters, like more monster markers. On this one, I have more chest markers. So, you know, I'd be like, where are the good chests at? You can obviously see where the good chests are just by looking at your map. So that's actually easier. Um, so, like, I can see I always like to try to get the currencies. So we got 3 currencies down here. We got a 4th currency here. We've got 2 hollows, 2 side areas. So ideally, I want to take and I want to hit some stuff that's going to buff my stuff up right away. And then I'm going to want to finish coming down through here so that with all the buffs on it, I'm going to be getting my 3 currency chests and 1 hollow. So my ideal route is to go this way, which is I kind of just look at my map and strategize it like this. And the reason why is because it takes me less time. So I would just be like, you know, I want to hit a bunch of stuff and I want to get runic monsters fully linked. That could wind up turning into good currency, at least like a divine orb. Um, I want these major chests, like fragments are good. The currencies chests are good. Hitting up these like quantity of items found in excavation chests. I went for that. I'm picking up this money down here. The reason why I want that the increased currency for chests, the reason why that's a good one for me is because what did I have on this? I have extra chests, so there's a good amount of chests. Also, I'm going to be finishing off on those currency ones. I have to make sure that I don't hit monsters are immune to cold, but that's really the only thing that I have to be weary of. There are some other things that can be pretty dangerous, you know, like stacking bleed and bleed effect or stacking impale and impale effect. Those can wind up getting pretty nasty. So obviously each build is going to have its own weaknesses and its own strengths. Picking up these stack deck percentages, that's just going to basically be buffing up the drops from all those things. You can normally get like 10, 20 stack decks, so that can wind up being good currency when you're able to hit those. Um, or if you just gamble them like me, it can wind up being nothing, or it could wind up being a lot. um, but yeah, you kind of got to just think about what it is that you want to hit, and then kind of try to make the number of pieces that you have. And you know, I want to go downwards, so what I'm doing is I'm trying to, with the very tip of this, hit this so that then I'm going to be able to cover the most amount of area. Oh, I got runic monsters duplicated. That happens sometimes. You wind up finding that after you've laid it out and you're like, well, I am definitely restarting. That is one of the few things that I will restart a good line for. But like I said, that's super rare, and we'll go this way now. So if I had more runic monsters, this would wind up being an insane map, but I mean this will still wind up being a really good map just because it has that. But now I'm going to be focused on trying to hit a bunch of runic monsters because obviously it's doubled up now. So, you know, that rarity is going to be really good for me. Or, and we've got the stack decks, I believe, are from runics.
I'm not up to that just yet.
Yep, runics. Stack decks from runics. I'm probably going to get a lot of stack decks. So we've got these fat loads of runics we're going to want to hit. So the chance to avoid all damage, that's something you have to be careful not to overstack. You can stack, that is a stackable stat. Chance reduced damage taken is a stackable stat. Chance to block is a stackable stat. And if you stack too many of those types of things, you can actually make them unable to kill, like completely unable to kill. You can make them immune to damage, or just completely, you know, so beefy if they've got like 90% chance to avoid damage, 90% reduced damage, you know, 100% block chance, like you're not killing it. Like, and that's one thing that you have to be careful about in these is you don't want to wind up creating, you don't want to wind up losing the map by overstacking something. Did I hit the? All right, yeah, I got that. Now I'm basically just making a run for the currencies. Is there anything I can hit? Yeah, that's good. That'll do. All right, so at the end, you want to put your thing over this and make sure you haven't made your map unbeatable. This is a check that you should get used to. Sometimes I stop paying attention and don't do this, and then after a long period of time, I just get too lazy when I'm playing really strong builds, and then I'll wind up having that oopsie moment where the map's running really well, and then I hit a point where they no longer take damage, and then I look down and I'm like, oh yeah, I completely ruined this map. So the best way to do these, in my opinion, is to basically stay on top of where they're spawning in so that they don't overstack. There are like ranged monsters that, they can just build up. So trying to stay on top of them and kill them as they're spawning in is basically the best strategy for most builds. Basically, you just stay in a chain, which definitely, like, doing this way, it can be really easy, but then if you mess up, it can wind up making a really easy map turn into a nearly impossible map because you can get like off screen by some of the range dudes. And as they get further in, they're just stacking more and more beefy stats. So like they can get they get really dangerous. Like as we were talking about, they can become invulnerable. They can also become so strong that they're, one-shotting just insanely tanky builds. Because you're stacking like 50% more damage is extra chaos, and guaranteed chance to hit. Attacks can't be evaded. Like they can get really nasty. Spectral Hollow. Okay, so I think I pretty much killed everything. We'll just run through the loot. Early league, like I pretty much like, checking a lot of the bases and stuff like that. But pretty much at this point, it's like, there ain't as much that I'm looking at. It's not lion pelt. So I got 4 medallions. So basically that's 4 rerolls. Some maps you'll get none. Some maps you'll get just like an insane amount. Bosses are going to give you the most. If you have a boss, you probably are going to want to try to get monsters drop increased quantity. That's going to increase the amount of stuff that you're going to get from them. So here we go. This is one I was saying was one of the better ones, just because it tends to have more. I'd say this one's normally a 3 to 5. As I said, I have seen it 6, but I wouldn't expect 6. But I like Chittering Chambers. Chittering Chambers normally tends to have more chests, but they're random. You don't know which one it's going to be, but yeah. And then you'll see in those side areas, there's probably like 2 or 3 chests in each of those.
That would only slow me down.
Am I actually full? Oh yeah, I think I started with stuff in my inventory. Yeah, I started with a lot of stuff in my inventory because I wasn't planning on running this. We'll go ahead and look at the currency and get an idea. I'd say this is like just a regular run. It looks about regular. So like I would say that this is so far like a realistic interpretation of a, a realistic. This is realistic of like what you could expect to get drops just consistently. Like you didn't get lucky. You just running a map. Um, I got a few rerolls. The average per map, if you're able to kill the bosses, is going to be higher on the coinages. Um, but yeah, this is kind of normal. The way that I normally see the maps is normally the maps are going to give you a decent amount of currency. Like when you add all the small stuff together, normally the currency should be around what you've invested into the map. But then you're going to have your coinages and all that other stuff that then's going to turn into more currency. Sometimes you get lucky and you get big drops in the map. The reason why I go for the currency ones is because you do get exalts from those. You can actually get stacks of currencies in here, which is cool. It was actually it was actually the first place during the expedition league where I actually got like stacks of divine orbs, stacks of exalted orbs that actually fell on the ground. They cut back, they nerfed that back some, but they do still drop. Um, stacks of exalts and stuff like that. So it does still happen, but it's really really uncommon. I haven't had any this league. Um, and the first league, even when it was like 2 OP, um, it only happened for me a couple times. So, but I had a friend that it happened for this league, so I know that it's still possible. So we got like 10C there. That was actually in chaos. 10, 11 stack decks. There's like a few C in here. We got the 5 medallions, which those are 6C a piece, so that'd be like 24C. Um, some essences, maps, stuff like that. Just basically all that small stuff that's going to have to add up to get to a point where you're going to be able to sell it. Um, so yeah, that's pretty much. Uh, Danny's
Hey,
cool. Let's see if he winds up hitting it. That'd be a cool way to
let's
end
see
this.
what else I've got.
If we get the reroll currencies for the other ones.
Let's see what else I've got.
Last one.
Interested in
Yeah!
something else, are you?
So there we go. From my expedition map, I got myself another expedition map. Um, so that was cool. Um, you know, invest, and I still have another one of those ones to run. So that's why Danning's cool. He stacks you up on a lot of these coinages. So it's good to mix some of those in. That's my personal way of playing these. I like to throw some Danigs, mix them up, because he's a really good way to stack the coinages for the other people. Or like if you're short, like if you got a bottleneck on them, then you're gonna be able to fix that bottleneck. Normally the bottleneck for Gwen
Welcome.
is going to be the the third
What do you
tier.
mean? In a gambling.
So she normally people are gonna be running out of the grand broken circles.
Ale.
Tujen normally I would say that my breaking point or where I run out first is the second tier, the graders. Um, and Rog,
This deal.
I mean right now I'm out of his order artifacts. Those are like the best types of rolls. Like remove the lowest modifier is one that comes up common for that, or like I don't know, just normally some of the better ones are the ones that those hit on. Um, so yeah, I like all of them. Gwennen, not really so much. I said that the first league that I don't really like her because she hasn't given me anything, and I still feel that way. Uh, I still use her currencies, but yeah, Black Scythe is my favorite for an all league thing, just because it's consistent currency. I like consistent currency. Rog, I really like this league because of the new influences, which I think now he's probably going to be something that everyone should get used to just because of how powerful of gear you can create with a combination of very little currency and getting like not even that lucky with him. You can wind up creating some pretty insane items. Um, so yeah. And Danig, of course, is cool because as you just saw, you can play one of his maps and get another map and get currency for all other 3 masters. So that's pretty cool. Um, Anyways, I hope this video has been helpful. There's so much to cover on this, so I hope that I covered it well. If you have any questions, if you want to see anything else, let me know in the comments and I will address your questions. Thanks for watching. Peace.